In May of 2024, something huge happened in the world of undergraduate Ayurveda education in India. The National Commission for Indian System of Medicine, or the NCISM for short, rolled out a brand new set of regulations. And let me tell you, this wasn't just some minor tweak. It's a complete overhaul, really a blueprint for a whole new era for every single Ayurveda college in the country.
So, what's actually changing? Well, we're going to break it all down for you across 5 key areas. We'll kick things off with why this is such a big deal, then dive into what this new digital campus is all about, and the new standards for learning. After that, we'll look at how they plan to enforce all this with a new accountability system. And finally, we'll step back and ask, what does this all mean for the future of Ayurveda?
First things first, we need to understand just how big this change really is. These 2024 regulations, they aren't just an update. They completely throw out the old rules from 2016 and 2019. It's a total reset, wiping the slate clean.
And this was no small adjustment. We're talking about a fundamental, ground-up redesign aimed at tackling some really long-standing issues. You can boil the goal down to 3 things: to modernize the infrastructure, to standardize quality across the board, and, maybe most importantly, to bring in some serious quality control. The idea is to make sure every single graduate is trained to the same high standard.
Okay, let's get into the first pillar of this huge change, the mandated digital campus. This is a massive, top-down order for a complete technological makeover at every single Ayurveda college. No exceptions. So from now on, every college has to have its own dedicated IT cell. You can think of it as the digital nerve center for the whole institution. This cell is responsible for everything tech-related: the website, the learning management system, the hospital's information system, you name it. And get this, they have to have a high-speed internet connection and be able to send all their data in real time directly to a central command center at the NCISM. And say goodbye to paper sign-in sheets. Biometric attendance is now mandatory for literally everyone, from the dean all the way down to the first-year interns. These scanners are going to be at all the entrances, and they'll be tracking who's there and who isn't. And, you guessed it, feeding that data directly to the commission in real time. It's all about making sure faculty are actually teaching and students are actually in class. The new rules also demand some pretty extensive CCTV surveillance. And we're not just talking about a camera in the hallway. We mean cameras in classrooms, libraries, labs, exam halls, patient registration areas, even in the operation theaters. And all of that video has to be kept on file for at least 6 months, which creates this incredible record of what's happening inside these institutions. College websites are also getting a major facelift. They can no longer be these static online brochures. Now they have to be dynamic, constantly updated portals. Every month, they have to upload tons of data. Everything from detailed faculty lists and student admission data to exam results and hospital patient statistics. The goal here is pretty simple: make everything public and hold these places accountable. Okay, so we've covered the digital transformation, but the next set of changes is all about the physical world. The new rules are setting a much, much higher bar for the quality of the college itself and its attached teaching hospital. The learning environment itself is getting a serious upgrade. All classrooms now have to be fully tech-enabled with smart boards and modern AV gear. Libraries need to have more books on hand and stay open for longer hours. But here's what might be the biggest change. Every college now has to have what's called a Yagya Clinical Skill Lab. This is a simulation lab full of mannequins and advanced simulators so students can practice their clinical skills in a safe, controlled setting before they ever work on a real patient. It's a huge step forward for hands-on training. Now, what's really fascinating is just how specific these rules get, especially when it comes to the teaching hospital. They now dictate exactly how hospital beds should be divided up. So for a college with 100 students, a quarter of the beds have to be for panchakarma, which is all about detoxification, another 20% for a kaya chikitsa or internal medicine, and 20% for the shalya or surgical ward. This isn't just random. It's designed to guarantee that every student gets a well-rounded and complete clinical education. And here is a number you really need to remember: 60%. This is the new minimum average bed occupancy that a hospital has to demonstrate over an entire year. See, it's not enough to just have the beds anymore. They have to prove they have patients in those beds. This ensures there's a steady stream of real-world cases for students to learn from, which is the absolute lifeblood of medical training. And this table here perfectly illustrates how that same idea applies to the outpatient department.
The rules create a very strict 1-to-2 ratio of students to patients. So if your college admits 100 students a year, your hospital better have an average of at least 200 outpatients walking through the door every single day. The size of the college is now mathematically tied to its clinical workload. There's no way around it.
But all these new standards don't mean much if there's no one around to enforce them. And that brings us to our next big topic: accountability. These regulations are introducing some really powerful new ways to oversee and rate colleges. And believe me, these new rules have some serious teeth.
The main player you need to know about here is MARBism. That's the Medical Assessment and Rating Board for Indian System of Medicine. This is the group under the NCISM that's now in charge of going out and assessing, inspecting, and rating every single institution to make sure they're actually meeting these new standards. One of the most important changes is how colleges get permission to operate. In the past, they had to go through this whole application process every single year. The new system creates something called extended permission. Basically, if a college can prove it meets all the standards for 3 years straight, it gets a pass on the yearly hassle. It's a great way to reward the colleges that are consistently doing a great job. There's also a brand new rating system that grades colleges on an A to D scale. And this grade actually means something. Only the colleges that earn an A or a B will even be considered for expansion or for increasing the number of students they can admit. It creates this powerful motivation for everyone to shoot for the top, not just scrape by with a bare minimum. So, what happens if a college just doesn't follow the rules? Well, the regulations are pretty blunt about it. They give the board the power to, and I'm quoting here, impose monetary penalty not exceeding rupees 1 crore. That's about $120,000. When you combine that with the threat of having your student intake reduced or even losing your recognition altogether, the message is crystal clear. Compliance is not a suggestion.
Okay, so we've looked at the new digital campus, the higher learning standards, and the tough new accountability measures. Let's zoom out. What's the big picture here? Why does any of this really matter?
Well, when you put all the pieces together, you can really see 4 big ideas emerge. First, standardization. The goal is to create a single high-quality baseline for every college. Second is modernization. It's about dragging the administration and the teaching tools into the 21st century. Third is quality control, using all this new monitoring and rating to actually enforce the rules. And finally, accountability. It's a huge shift where colleges now have to prove their worth with cold, hard, real-time data.
In the end, this whole ambitious reform is a massive bet on the future of Ayurveda. The hope is to elevate and professionalize the entire system, but it also brings up a really deep question. Will this top-down, data-driven approach create a new generation of incredibly competent doctors? Or could it, in its search for uniformity, accidentally stamp out the very diversity of thought and tradition that has let this ancient science flourish for thousands of years? That right there is the big question hanging over this new era of Ayurveda education.